Our coverage this evening of the local state employee who was arrested and terminated from his position after several kilograms of suspected cocaine were seized. And I have a look at what happened in court today.
8 kilograms of cocaine found inside the governor's own office, carried by the man appointed to represent the state's western region. This wasn't a cartel warehouse. This was the seat of public trust, turned into a supply line. This wasn't an outside threat. This was betrayal wearing a government badge. If you want to see how deep the rot goes,
At 5:12 a.m., Springfield slept. The hallways of the state office stood quiet until federal agents moved through them like a shadow cutting through stone. A steel door was forced open. Desks that once held job briefs and family photos now sat under a cold, new light.
The steel door broke open with a loud bang. The sound echoed through the office like thunder. Inside, stacks of job briefs and framed photos sat on desks, symbols of public trust. But trust had been broken. On
a conference table, a sealed courier box waited. When agents opened it, the truth struck like a knife. 8 kilograms of pure cocaine, a 9mm pistol, and $3,500 in cash. The man in handcuffs was Lamar Cook, Deputy Director of the Governor's Office for Western Massachusetts, a public servant accused of betraying his office and his oath. What began as a single arrest quickly unraveled into something far larger. Forensics teams.
This betrayal was deeper than any drug bust, because when the people who were supposed to protect the system began poisoning it. If you're still watching, you understand this isn't about drugs, it's about infiltration. Comment I see, so I know you're following. The DEA digital forensics team started with the
seized laptops, encrypted drives, and shipping manifests. The screen that unlocked in a federal cyber lab turned one scandal into a sprawling investigation. Shipping records, schedules, and encrypted notes documenting a 14-month operation.
A series of shipments over 14 months.
The cartels are all suppressing methamphetamine tablets, and these look exactly like an Adderall pill.
Fake pills, fentanyl sticks, methamphetamine.
Crystals, these are from Mexico.
These are just some of the 500 pounds of drugs seized in a federal crackdown on the Sinaloa cartel.
19 shipments in all, each weighing between 8 and 20 kilograms, all shipped through the regular state postal system and drop-off points inside warehouses and docks. The more they followed the trail, the more names appeared. Not street dealers. It wasn't criminals lurking in the alleys. It was the people who had sworn to serve and protect the people who were now poisoning their own. The names of the positions that emerged were revolting. Patrolman, officer, deputy sheriff, court clerk. Each played a role. Together, they formed a subterranean chain, a network built to move cocaine quietly through Massachusetts neighborhoods, schools, and homes. The agents traced the supply chain, and what they discovered was chilling.
The trail led away from the street-level dealers and into the institutions we trust. Patrolmen, deputies, court clerks, even municipal staff. Packages moved during government business hours. Evidence was routed through state-owned storage, shipments passed through regular postal channels, and drop points at warehouses and docks. This wasn't a cartel operating in the shadows. It was a system wearing familiar faces. Across the region, coordinated raids followed the digital breadcrumbs. At dawn, armored vehicles rolled up, helicopters circled. Agents moved in, fast, surgical, and decisive. 4 primary distribution corridors emerged. Community food warehouses were fronts for cold storage of contraband. Logistics trucks, camouflaged as produce haulers, hid sealed containers moving through trusted routes. 2 private, invitation-only casinos funneled cash into shell companies. A nonprofit, claiming to support youth work, processed more than $11.3 million in fake donations.
In Lowell, armored vehicles stopped outside a 2-story auto shop. Agents lined up at the door. A white flash of intruder mind, the steel door swung inward. Inside, 3 men reached for their weapons, intending to fight back, but they had no chance. Stun grenades exploded, echoing like thunder, stuck inside the concrete walls. At the same time, in Springfield, a warehouse disguised as an agricultural distributor hid something else entirely. Underneath the tarps, 200 pounds of cocaine and 90 pounds of fentanyl, wrapped, sealed, ready for shipping. The operation didn't stay silent for long. In Worcester, a surveillance camera in the garage picked up movement. Within seconds, the suspects had grabbed their rifles and were trying to flee through the back alley. A Black Hawk helicopter passed overhead, its rotor blades shaking the roof. A voice thundered over the loudspeaker. "Drop your weapons! You're surrounded!" The suspects were still firing. The alley erupted into close combat. Muzzle flash lit up the brick walls. Burns splattered on the sidewalk. A DEA agent ducked behind a wall. 2 FBI agents advanced, disciplined and deliberate. Short bursts, controlled breathing, no panic. After 9 minutes, the street fell silent. The 3 suspects lay motionless. 2 surrendered, their hands shaking as they realized the escape routes they had relied on were gone.
The financial picture was damning. Chips turned to cash, cash to electronic deposits routed into shell entities across Delaware and Puerto Rico. Money that should have helped neighborhoods was routed back into the network. The raids did not go unchallenged. In one alley, suspects fired as tactical teams closed in. In another warehouse, 200 pounds of cocaine and 90 pounds of fentanyl were found, sealed, and ready for shipment, each package carrying the cartel's imprint. By sunrise, 47 people were in custody. Over a ton of drugs was seized. Dozens of weapons and encrypted ledgers were taken as evidence, and the files revealed a more terrifying truth. This network was woven through everyday life. Mechanics, small businesses, civic charities, and government offices. A single laptop unlocked the architecture of the network. Analysts traced shipments back through a corridor stretching from the Mexican border through Ohio and New York, finally converging in Boston's commuter belt. The mastermind was not only violent, the operation was methodical, corporate, and deeply embedded. Investigators estimated hundreds of millions in annual profits. And while the empire was wide, agents found it thin in crucial places, vulnerable seams that could be pulled to unravel the system. In response, the state formed an independent integrity review task force, empowered to audit departments, financial transfers, and procurement chains tied to public agencies. The mission: restore trust and hold accountable those who betrayed it. This was not a finishing strike. It was a reckoning. Raids and arrests exposed the map, but the deeper work would be slow, relentless, and public. Badges were collected, files were sealed, names were spoken aloud, regardless of who they had been. This story is a warning. Corruption can hide in plain sight. The shield that protects can be bought, and the network can wear the face of the community. But exposure is the first step toward repair.
Profit claiming to support community youth outreach had processed over $11.3 million in donations. The donor names were fake. The money came from drug sales, and the same nonprofit paid speaking fees, campaign support contributions, and security consulting retainers to several local officials. The network had designed itself to look helpful to the community, helpful to the state, helpful to everyone except the families burying their dead from overdoses. This was the heartbreak. The cartel did not hide in the shadows. It wore the mask of everyday life. Your mechanic, your neighbor, your town fundraiser sponsor, your elected representative. This was how it survived, not through violence alone, but through trust, bought silently. As the final pins went into the investigative board, the room fell quiet. The scale was now undeniable. $220 million in annual profits, thousands of households affected, institutions compromised from within. And yet, something else emerged. Weak points, patterns, locations where operation depended on a small number of individuals still active. The empire may have been wide, but it was also thin in key places. Those places could break. The decision was made. The next phase would not be surveillance. It would be purification. The shield had been stained. Now it will be cleaned. The raids had exposed the network. The map had revealed its shape. But the hardest part was only beginning, because the cartel's greatest weapon was not the drugs it moved. It was the people it had taken with it. At dawn, unmarked federal vans rolled toward police precincts, municipal buildings, and administrative offices across Massachusetts. These were not the fast, violent entries of the earlier raids. These were precise, surgical, inevitable. Inside a district station in Worcester, officers gathered around morning briefings like any other day, until federal agents stepped through the front doors, not with raised weapons, but with warrants. A lieutenant who had served 23 years stared in disbelief as his badge and sidearm were removed. A detective, once praised for reducing neighborhood drug crime, lowered his head as his own handcuffs clicked shut.
If you believe this fight should continue, share this story. Follow our continuing coverage as investigators trace the next leads and reveal how deep the rot goes.